All right. Hey, good evening, LinkedIn. Dave Wilson of the Ring of Horror Show. Hey, tonight, I love this topic, but you've been promoted to a supervisor, and now what? And we're going to talk about that for a lot of the things that you don't know when you become a supervisor. So we'll be right back after this. All right. Hey, good evening, everyone. Tonight, subject is kind of a pretty neat subject, but when you're promoted to that first job as a supervisor, or currently that you've been working, say you've been working at a site for like 10 years, and you've worked hard, and they've offered you a promotion, and you take it, right? But what some people, you want to be careful is, being a leader, you learn. I think you involve with that. I mean, it just comes with in time. And the stuff I'm going to go over tonight is a lot of it's personal, but it just takes time and what you learn and the mistakes. But you really need to do your research if you're ready. Oh, geez. All right. That's all right. That's all right, Steve. I got a great subject tonight, so it's good. So Steve's he's a great guy in Utah, and he finds everybody as a job. He's a great guy. And he'll know a lot about this subject. Is learn about the positions. Make sure you know the job. That's the first thing. You need to know the job. Don't assume that you know everything, because you don't. You're going to learn as you go, but you really need to be in that position. It works a lot better, in my opinion, to go into a different industry that you're not normal or used to. That can sometimes change, but talk to your other supervisors that you're now, like, hey, what's it like? What do I need to know? What am I going to face? Talk to some colleagues, right? Some friends that are in management. Sometimes you're going to get a lot of them saying negative things. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Listen, to become a leader, and if you really want to, I think there's nothing wrong with it. You just, in my opinion, I wish I would have had back in 1987. I wish I would have had a little bit more direction for the first 10 years, let's just say. So I had started out in the Army and graduated basic training. And then all of a sudden I was promoted to an acting corporal, and started to be an instructor in basic training. So there I was. Wow. Right out of high school and then into the military. And there you are. You're in charge of a platoon of 25, 30 people, and you're teaching, right? It was awakening, because you didn't, in the military was a little bit different than civilian life, but you really learned a lot about discipline and following the rules. It comes down to that. It was kind of easy because you had that structure. The structure in military it was there for you. So you had a crutch to kind of lean back on. That was the way it was. You did what you were told, and you did it. There was no hassles. And then you worked with your platoon. And if there was anybody getting out of line, anything like that, you took care of the issue. It's just the way it was. But then when I transferred out of the military to civilian life, hey, James, how you doing? Welcome. Yeah, and if you want to add something, please. So I got out and I went into the paper industry. My mother, my father, my brothers all worked there. They were supervisors at James River. And wow. I started working there on the floor, and then all of a sudden I was 22 years old, and they asked me if I wanted to come salary and become a manager, first line supervisor, like my brother and everybody, right? Whew. it, okay, I thought about it, and I wish I would have known a lot of different things, because the stuff I'm going to talk about, a lot of this, some people can relate to. Is let me tell you, you think it's easy when you look at a supervisor in any kind of industry. You talk anything with logistics now, and all over manufacturing mainly, because there in manufacturing you really know how to take care of a machine and make adjustments and fix it. But my point there is, when I took it over, if I would have had a little bit more insight, besides my brother, I owe him this. You learned a lot the hard way. You worked hard, you moved up, right? But you got to be prepared for what you're signing up for. So I always say, do you have what it takes? My first salary welfare was $28,000 a year. Mind you, I worked 80 hours. Steve, I agree. And that is one of the things in here, because you better be prepared to work hours. And I still tell people right now, it doesn't matter what job. When you take a salary job, I know James and Steve can say, you're going to put those extra hours in. There's just, I understand work-life balance. I get that. I'm all for it, 100%. But when you're in management, sometimes that takes a little, you got to maybe take a minus 30% of it, but you're going to have to put back into being a manager. But what I wanted to bring about that is, my first job was in a union environment. So there I was, 21 years old, 180 people. I was my parents' boss. They were there also. They ran the machines. So it was really different. But being in a union environment at 21 years old and in charge of 180 people and machines, right? Now I learned some of them, but these were huge. These were paper industry. These were paper friggin' machines as big as a football field, and laminators and extruders. And every time something was wrong, I mean, you were there to fix it. So if the hourly people couldn't do it, you were the supervisor. You were to know. Well, when you're only there for a couple months, now some people were there for 10 years, but my point there is, when you got to switch gears, right? You've had all your friends, all your coworkers, right? Everybody's there, everybody, right? Then the switch. All of a sudden you're promoted, right? I'll tell you what, people are in shock, maybe, some of them. Wow, all right. That next day, when you're ready to go into the office, let me tell you, if you're not nervous that night, if your stomach ain't churning and you don't get no sleep, something's wrong with you, because it's frightening. You don't know what it is. There he is, Kenny. Savor the flavor. There he is. Delectable thoughts of us tonight, every night. Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate it. And these are the guys that you want to reach out to, and they've been in these positions. I guarantee it. Kenny's happy all the time, but I guarantee that he's had to be into a management spot. But my point there is, when I started, there is a lot of things that can go wrong. Are you prepared? Like, first of all, when you switch, your friends are all gonna be like, oh my God, now you're their supervisor. So now you have to hold meetings, right? You got to be prepared for that. You've seen somebody do that. Now you got to do it. If you think that's easy, it'll come to you in time. It'll come. There's Stephanie. Hey, Steph. Reach out for Stephanie for resume services. You got to reach out for her, connect with her, and she'll swear you away. But you better be prepared to do these meetings. They're just going to throw you out there. They're going to tell you they're going to train you. But just forget about that. You're going to be that one up there in front of all your friends, right? Say, Carolyn, oh my God. Hey, Carolyn, how you doing? That's been a long time. She's on Facebook. This is streamlining all through there also. But think about that switch. Now, you've been friends with everybody, right? Hey, maybe hung out. Now you're their boss. That's tough. So when you're doing those meetings and, everybody's looking at you, giving you sometimes wise ass remarks or smirks or their body language, you better be prepared for that and how you're going to act. And these are just things like I want to tell you that myself here, you're the best. You're the best, Carl. I appreciate that. You need to lead them. Now you're supervisor, but you really need to step back and think, what am I going to face? What am I going to have come up to me right now? What can happen, right? I'm going to tell you some things. So now that you're their boss, sometimes you have a group of people, right? Now all of a sudden you'll have some problems on the machines, right? This could be in anything. All of a sudden now the machines start acting up. They will watch you and they'll push you to see what you're going to do. They're going to test the waters. Let's just say they could make a problem with their machines. I had to go over there, and try to adjust and tell them what to do, and you had people that were 25 to 30 years at the company. And here being 21, 22, I'm trying to talk to these guys. And how do I gain the respect of people that have been there for 25, 30 years? You don't just do that like that. It came with time and evolving what I've done now through all the years. And it comes down to experience. When a job description says experience, let me tell you, that is a big word, because the stuff that I'm going to push up against you that could say that you're going to run into, these are some of them. You don't want me to be your boss, David. There he goes. So you're always going to have that heckler. You're going to have that person that's going to push you, right? Hey, Rob, how you doing, sir? These are all coming in tonight, all the way from Pittsburgh. How's it going, sir? Hope everything's going good. And Rob, we're talking about becoming a supervisor the first time. So you're going to be up there in that first meeting, right? And they're going to introduce you. And all of a sudden, you got that person, man, that's just going to say something negative. They're going to say something to you, and you got to stop and think to yourself, what are you going to say, right? How are you going to act? They're all watching you. You don't always know. You become yourself. You become you're evolving as you go, because that's nervous. I don't care. Anybody says it isn't, it is. It's nerve-wracking because you don't know what you're going to do. You got somebody that's just saying things to you right out loud in front of, say, 100 people. I've been there over 35 years. I fired that person. See? And when they're pushing you like that, you don't know what to do all the time. I don't care who you are. You're going to be like, why didn't I say that afterwards, right? The best point there is to always, and I'm going to give you a situation and then some things that could help you. But when things like that would happen, if that happened to me now, I wish I would have known, because afterwards I would have taken that employee to the office myself and had a casual conversation. If you don't nip that right in the butt, seriously, especially now in today's world, if you don't nip that stuff in the butt, that person or persons are going to be like a thorn in your side. They're just going to be a thorn in your side for the rest of the time you're there. So take advantage of that. Take it as like somebody explaining to you now that what you need to do, because I didn't always do that. I tell you what, man, I was tossed and turned all different ways that I could be, yelled at, screamed at. It was a union environment. So much going on. And human resources back in the 90s. Listen, I've told people before, human resources scares the living hell out of me. I don't care how many years they've got in HR. If they've been there for 2 years, they're not calling you in most of the time to say, hey, you're doing a great job. Something's going on. But you know how I tease about human resources. They're great people, but they're scary. I don't care, because we all know why. But you learned to work. What I did about that was I learned to work with the guys that have been there for a lot of years, and some of the ladies, they were there for a long time. My mother was. You learn to work with them in a way that I kind of catered to them a little bit, because I had to respect. Now, this was because I was young. I had to respect them for the 25 to 30 years that they did on the manufacturing part. Hey, Doris. See, I know, Doris, you're always, if I do it early, you're always on the show. You go to bed too early. She's always shows up on that. But like Kenny says, nip that bud quick. You really need to in today's world. But you have to gain the people's respect. Gain their respect in a way that you work with them. It's okay to work with them. In my opinion, this is all my opinion. The job, they're struggling, help them out, or find somebody else to help them. They're going to watch these little things that you do, little things at a time. They're going to be like, wow, okay, Dave's doing this, or Kenny, or what, they're doing it. They're coming in. So they're the kind of things that I worked with some of the older people. I kind of knew the answer to some of the stuff on the machines. These were huge, but these guys knew a lot. So they could make your life miserable. They could make you run around and listen. You don't know what to do. You got to call your bosses at home. Because if you are going salary, let me just tell you, if you are going into management, be prepared to be called at night. Now, if anybody tells you that's not true, be prepared to call at night. Be prepared to be called at night by your boss for something that you did during the day. Be prepared. It always, always happens. I don't care what anybody says. If you're in the right industry, manufacturing even, oof. Back then you had caller ID. It was just like a little box onto your phone, so you could be like, no, I didn't want to answer it. But you wanted to gain their respect. That was the main thing. So how do you do that? We went down. Oh, I'm here. Wrong. This is my fault. Oh, so then you thought when you went to union or non-union, right? You thought, wow, I don't have that hard time of writing people up, because in a union environment, what you had structure. This is what I liked about being with a union environment. You had the structure of the rules. Everybody had to kind of follow the rules. You had a first warning, verbal warning, written warning, final warning, and then you were termination with HR. But if you're not prepared to pull that person in that office, this could happen on your second day. Second day, it could happen. My father's manufacturing. He works a lot. See, that's what I mean. It does. Kenny, they can call me Dare. But you got to be prepared for that. You got to be prepared on what you're going to do and how you're going to answer the questions. And with a union, when you have to write them up, you had a union rep with you. Okay. So now you're writing that, giving that person a verbal warning. I'm sorry. Lord, you gave it to him. But then even the written one, but then you had to do a grievance procedure, for God's sake. You had to go back all over and hash this out all over. But being a new supervisor, they're going to press you. They're going to just come after you, because if you've said anything, that's what being a supervisor, you got to be careful of what you're saying on the floor to employees, to other management. You need to zip sometimes. This is only all from experience. But you got to answer to some of this when you're writing somebody up. And if you have anything to do with that, they're going to bring it up. Whether you're a friend, you think they're your friend, right? That can change real fast. So if you're not doing your job correctly, they're going to call you out on as a new supervisor. It's just a fact. It happens. And these are kind of the things that you got to say to yourself, wow, what would I do? What would I do? I had a supervisor that taught me. The first one was, he was the most miserable dictator, if you want to call it. That's what I grew up in with that. It was, you do this, the screaming, the yelling, you were scared to live in daylights out of him, calling you into meetings and yelling at you. It didn't matter. It was different back then. It was totally different. But the only thing I will say is he got results. Let me tell you, you wanted your job and you either listened to it and took it. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot of those 10 years that, first of all, I would never work for someone like that again. Never. But he learned me about what I wouldn't do. I would never, ever supervise like he did. I would do it differently and get the same results at the end of the day. Be careful of what you say and how you say it. You can't get any better than that. That's the truth. As a manager, your behavior will be watched. These are things you can tell everybody's been in it. They will watch you and watch you. But along those lines comes experience. This is all growing pains. You're going to have growing pains from all the way up. And I'm telling you, stress in manufacturing, stress, 100-some people. And then even after that, all these years, I swear to God, I thought I'd never stay in management. I wanted to get the hell out of it. But it was the only thing I knew. But my God, you lose your hair, you lose sleep. You don't, it drives you crazy. Rumors, let me tell you, all from learning. The rumor mill, keep it, you got to be careful with it. Rumors are great, but try to just say, and until still this day that you might be like, somebody might be talking about somebody, but you really want to be like, I don't want to get involved with that because it's going to come back at you. Just let it go. And then, where people say to you, hey, don't tell anybody I'm telling you this, right? That you're in trouble, because as soon as somebody says that, I swear, as soon as somebody says that, you're called out, man. When HR or somebody even says that to you, hey, keep it Unless you have a tight team that won't say anything, you just be careful. That's just one of the things, growing pains. I'm going to call it growing pains. I hate rumors. I would like to eventually become an HR manager, training and development manager. And Doris, these are the kind of things, there's no difference. These are the kind of things right here that I'm talking about that you're going to encounter as a human HR manager in training and development, because HR is different now than it was back then. Whew. You know, HR is, there's a lot more, my God, there's a lot more stuff that they have to do for policies and all the different things that they have to do to make sure everything is just right on everything with the laws and Jesus. Whether they say the right things or wrong things, it was just different back then. Back then, they just fired you. You were gone. Fired, you're gone. But be careful when you're with your team. Don't talk about other employees. Like, if this person's slow, right? You don't sit there and say, "Oh, he'll never make it. I'm going to get rid of him." Don't worry about it. Your team sees it. You're going back to them. Don't worry, I'll get rid of him. I'm the supervisor. No. Growing pains, yes. Been there, done it. Hey, take a step back. Things are different now. Take a step back. You don't want to tell somebody else that person's not doing his job well, because you know what? It comes back on you as the supervisor. So if you're a young supervisor and you're telling people, "Oh, don't worry about it," you know what? Switch that a little bit. Help them. Show them the way. These are the kind of things that I think I've learned through the years is they're a reflection on you. They are a reflection of you. You can't fire somebody quickly these days. No, you're right. Kenny, that was one part of the thing I was going to talk about. It is harder. I don't care what people say. I know it's an at-will state, different thing, but it is a little bit harder because you got to be really, really careful that you follow those procedures all the way, or the process all the way through. If you deviated from any of it, if you as a supervisor had anything to do with anything in that investigation or anything like that, it can come back on you. It'll bite you. And these are the kind of things, just keep it to yourself and try not to go in that direction. Stay neutral right through there. But let's see, don't do it. Don't talk about your bosses. Don't talk about your bosses to other bosses or supervisors. Don't do it. If you do it, just keep it kind of low, because let's see here. It's best to keep negative comments, yes, and rephrase them. Keep it to yourself. It's going to bite you. It's going to come back at you again. If you're talking that bad about another supervisor to one supervisor, then to a manager, it all comes around and it comes right back to you. Try to be that middle person that stops it. You can sit there and say, "Listen, I really don't want to hear about another person unless they're in front of me." You can go routes. Like, you can stop somebody. Like, "Why are you saying that about this person?" As a new supervisor, these are the kind of things I'm joking about, a little bit of them and stuff like that, but these have all happened to me. So, you learn what to do from experience. Like I said, experience. The next thing was, listen, sometimes management will tell you to do something. You're the supervisors. You're going to go out there and you're going to tell, as a new supervisor, you're going to tell them what to do. If you're not nervous doing that the night before, if it's a big meeting or something like that, something's wrong with you. I'm telling you, I was nervous half of my friggin' life. My stomach would just churn and churn because you didn't want to do it. But yet, you took that job. You took that job as that management. You wanted to be that supervisor, that named supervisor. You wanted to come in, you wanted to fire people, right? Wrong. If you want to fire people as a supervisor, right? If you want to fire people, you might as well just back it up, because if you enjoy that, something is friggin' wrong. Something is wrong with you. Hey, Russ. Hey, there's Russ, Kenneth Jr. Oh, he's always in here. There's Russ. I know Russ. I got to talk to you one day. We got to talk. But reach out to these guys. These guys are great colleagues. But when you're with your team as a new supervisor, don't sugarcoat it. Tell them the truth. Be honest right off the bat. Listen, if I would have known then what I know now, be honest. They're going to see right through you. And as a new supervisor, they're going to kind of get in there with you. They're going to try to just push you, like I said, edge you there, and what's going on. But just be honest to your team. Don't sugarcoat it. The employees are watching you. Tell the truth. I had to write these things down, right? If you are nervous, but at the end of the day, it comes back to you. It comes back to you. Everything comes back to the supervisor. But be prepared for you. Like I told people, employees won't talk to you for 2 days. That's just part of it. Hey, Russ, that's just part of it. When you're writing someone up for your first time as a supervisor, your first time, it doesn't get easier. You get kind of hardened after a while. And that's what you want to try to stay away from. But when you have to write them up, they're not going to talk to you for a day or two. They're pissed off. You just wrote them up. So now it takes like a day or two anymore. Don't go back and try to just mend it with the employee. They're going to, if they knew they did something wrong and you handled it correctly, listen, if you don't know how to handle it, right, there's always HR. Go to HR or talk to your boss. Your boss, the next level up, should be able to help you. They should be able to help you. It's zero emotion, calm and collected. You read my mind. There it is. And I'm going to elaborate on that, what he's saying. You do. When some people are yelling and they're in your face, I'm telling you, this stuff has happened. They're in your face and, they're pissed off and saying that they didn't do this, you did this, that. How do you act? I'll tell you, I've acted all different ways. I did the wrong thing. I engaged, started yelling back when I was young. That just escalated. I've sat quiet. I've sat emotionless. Kind of like what Russ was saying, zero emotion. I didn't care. Write you up. That was back then. It was like, I don't care. Here you go. Sign the paper. Written up. Second part, written them up, right? Because then the third and the fourth wasn't my spot. The third and the fourth usually goes up higher. And, you just, I don't know, some conversations are difficult but necessary. And he's exactly what he's saying. Geez, everybody's on point tonight. I stop and read them, and I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. They exactly know what I'm saying. So I always tell people there's personal and there's your professional side, being a first line supervisor, right? Your first time. You don't want to be super friends with everybody, right? You don't want to have favorites. That is one, Doris. Have I done that? Yes, years ago. If you're always with that one person as a supervisor, you're always going to this person, male, female, doesn't matter, whoever, you're kind of like, everybody starts saying, oh, Dave likes this person. Dave likes this person. Before you know it, everybody's saying different things. So you got to be careful. Don't try to talk to everybody. This is just some advice. Talk to everybody. Nothing hurts worse than having to place people on probation or fired. Safety, that's what I'm getting into. Also, Russ, that I might as well talk about it now. Safety to me is the most important, and it was back in the 90s. We had a lot of injuries. When I say injuries, not like the ones today. You're talking about limbs and arms and a paper industry. Oh my God, broken bones. But we improved. Safety came into about the 1990s and said, "Hey, let's clean it up a little bit." So. But if you know about a safety problem, right? If an employee, you're a new supervisor, an employee comes up to you and says, "Hey, I don't believe this is safe. I don't like this. I think we should do something." Talk to your management about it. That's what I would do now. If you miss that one time and someone gets hurt, right? They could be your friend as a first-time supervisor, but when it comes down to it, if you didn't report that, it's on you as a first supervisor. Anybody that comes up to you with any kind of questions, always talk to your boss before you make the decision and say the wrong thing. Listen, sometimes you're going to learn. You are going to learn the hard way. Why did you say this? Your boss is going to pull you in. Why did you say this? Why did you say that? It comes with, and Kenny and Russ can even say it, is experience. It comes down to being involved with all this stuff that I'm saying. I've been here, done it, just like everybody else has. If you've been there and done it, you know what I'm saying. You've learned. You've said the wrong things at the wrong time. because then the employees will start coming to you with their problems. Let's say if they're having personal problems, right? What do you say? Do you want to give advice nowadays? Do you want to tell them what to do? No. You can gear them. No, now if somebody really came up to me, listen, if they're having problems, I would go to human resources or my boss, say, listen, this person's really having some difficult times right now. We got to talk about it and see what we can do. Come up with a plan. Before, years and years ago, it didn't matter. So what? I'm just being honest. I've been there, done that. It was different than it is now. You have a great process right now. You have human resources really, really involved. They have to be that 50-50. 50% for an employee and 50% for the management. They cannot deviate from that because they're there for you and they're there to protect you as a first supervisor, because they're the ones that are going to come back and with you and they're going to say, Dave, why did you say this to this person? You said this behind their backs. They're going to call you out on it, and be prepared to have your stomach just drop. It drops. And you start being, oh shit, what'd I say? That's the kind of things that you're going to face. So another one, verbal abuse. Listen, if an employee is standing in your face and you feel a spit hitting you and they're screaming, listen, been there, done it. You called the police. You call the police, or now they have security at a lot of places, but you called the police. It was like, don't engage as a first supervisor. I wanted to start yelling back, and a couple of times I did, but it didn't escalate to that part. Now you just have to be so careful. Get away and just call somebody in security. Don't engage in it. When you see a person, I'm glad things have changed in the workplace. Yes, Doris, it's definitely changed. But don't engage when they're screaming and yelling at you. Just let it go. Don't worry about the employees that are going to be looking at you, because they're going to watch you. It's okay to be nervous. Seriously. I mean, geez, if I've sat here and said I wasn't nervous at those times, I've had, from when it came to like sexual harassment, I've had women against men, men against women, men against men, women against women. I've had people at the industry there. Somebody tried to run the girl over with a car. I couldn't prove it. There was no video cameras back there. She said the guy came in, tried to hit her in the parking lot. Those two were escalating all the time. There was nothing I could do but tell HR, and then they would talk to him, and you didn't have videos. Thank God. Yeah, right there. I have to go, unfortunately. I really like this video. Thanks, Doris. I appreciate it. But you had a live, now you have videos here. You can watch this stuff. But you really, when it comes to the harassment part, I tell people, if somebody comes to you today and says to you, Dave, say a young lady come to me, an employee, and said, hey, John's bothering me or doing stuff like this, stop. Don't let it go. I am telling you, if you've learned anything from this show, stop it right there. That candidate or employee, has told you something that can evolve further. So if you can stop it right there, listen, if a person comes to me and says that, and confidentially, they're saying this, listen, I'd have to say to them, you just told me this. I have no choice. I have to talk to my boss and HR. You have to. But at the same time, you kind of want the employee to come to you because they trust you. But at the end of the day, when it comes to harassment, because I've been through so many of them back in the 1990s, it was horrible. Nobody really knew what to do back then. I mean, I was called in the office. There was these two girls. They were calling for cat calls. Yeah, they were saying cat calls, body language. How do you write somebody up for making cat calls and body language? There was no videos. There was nothing like that. These people really didn't like each other. So back then, you just separated them. Now, things are a lot different now. They didn't investigate things differently than they did back then. But these are the kind of things that, as a first supervisor, that you're going to encounter. And some of these things, I mean, like I said, I talk about it and joke. I've been there, done it. And I know where my errors are now. I know the mistakes that I made. But make sure you address those issues. Don't back it up. Just go right there and get a hold of them. You're going to be thankful that you did, because you're going to have less problems going forward. Sometimes you're going to get a boss or another supervisor that doesn't like you. You've come in, you're a new supervisor, right? you're making all these new ideas, which they're great. You're making new ideas. Some of the other supervisors might be like, whoa, what's this guy doing? What's she doing? What are they doing? There's another thing right there. Try to nip that. If you're having problems with somebody, pull them in, talk to them. Hey, what's going on? I feel this way. Are you doing something? You're saying something to other people? Because supervisors will make the mistake of going to other employees and other supervisors and complain about that person. At the end of the day, it's coming back to you. It's all going to come back to you because you're the one that's involved. And if you're doing that, you got to just, if you start seeing yourself as a new supervisor going in that direction, stop, breathe, and just think. Jealousy. That's correct, Kenny. Talking with the other people, it's a jealousy. I would say that. Yeah, I agree with that. Envy. That's even a better word too. But it's a double-edged sword there. You don't want to do it. You don't want to talk about the other person unless they're really in front, especially in management. If you're talking about management to management, listen, you're on the same team. That might have been back in the day, but in today's day, it's just you got too many employees. Like in logistics, when you got 1,000 people on the floor, it's hard. When you got 500, but some supervisors will give you advice that don't. If you feel uncomfortable, don't do it. But to end it up is just be prepared as a first-time supervisor. You're going to take a lot of heat on the floor sometimes. Haters, you're going to take it on the floor. The employees are going to push you. The employees will test you. They're going to test you of how much you can take, what's your pressure point, what's your boiling point. They can create problems for you on the floor. They can create problems with your machines that can just wreak havoc on your life. They can make you go home. You need to be able to balance work and home life because that stress, I've been there. That stress at work as a first-line supervisor when you're first promoted and you're taking that home, it's the same way. You got to just find new techniques now. There's so many different things that you can do to decompress before you take that home. Because again, they're going to call you at home. The management's going to call you. You're going to be called to come in. All these things that you're going to want to know before you take this job and how you're going to handle it. Because people throw you under the bus. They're going to throw you under. But I believe that it's great to move up. You want to become a leader. You want to listen. Some people have it and some people don't. Some people just want to work. They don't want anything to do with management. They see what goes on, and that's okay. That's the way things are. Let them go. That's what they want to do. They could be there 20 years and they still just want to run that machine. What's wrong? There's nothing wrong with that. They enjoy their job. They sit there and say, I don't want to become a supervisor. And, the hours, like I told you, add on 10 hours, 10, 12, 15 a week. Get used to working weekends, if you have to. But you have to do the job. You got to do what it takes because you're held accountable this is perfect. Russ, I'll tell you, you were just reading my mind. Not only are you going to take it from one side, right? You're going to take it on the other. And then what he's saying is in the bus driver, you're going to be right in that friggin' middle. And you got to draw that line. You're going to have to put yourselves in those situations. And bad boy, good, bad girl, whatever you want to say, bad cop, good cop. Listen, just do some research on your job. Look at it and grow with the company and learn. And it's okay to make mistakes. Listen, I have made so many mistakes. I repeat myself. Do not call me at home. See, you know what I'm saying. Boundaries. And that's a good one. Boundaries. And geez, I can't even get to some of my words. You guys see what I'm saying? No, these guys here, they have the experience. They know exactly what I'm saying, but I would never tell anybody not to grow. You want to grow and you want to be that first line supervisor. You want to become that, the next level up, the manager. Then you want to become the VP, regional, whatever you want. Listen, once you get the management part down and you've learned not to say this, not to do that, got called in the butt because like HR will call you. This is one example. So You might be saying things to employees or saying something, right? They call you in there. They'll call you out in the meeting right there with the employee. Well, Dave, you said this. Oh, there it goes. You're busted. you got to really, your stomach, you learn, I think, in time how to stay away from those situations, if that makes sense. Russ, my boundaries, do not call me at home. You want to stay away from those. Don't feed into them. Do things to prevent, as a supervisor being a first time, from going in that direction. Stop. Just say, stop. I'm not going there. Listen, a lot of times people at work, they start dating and all that. Before you know it, oh my God, this one dating this one's getting married to this one, then they're fighting. Then you got to figure out what you're going to do there. You got people yelling at each other in the cafeteria. You're going in there and they're screaming. Then when you go out in the parking lot, and then you have family members yelling at you. I mean, you can tell I've been through all that. It's just, you don't know. You don't know what to expect. So at all times, there's a lot of great books out there and a lot of great things about leadership that you can learn and grow. So, be prepared to make mistakes. Be prepared to learn from them, and really set an example for yourself. Have yourself stand out. You know what? Have that person say, you know what, Russ, if I have a problem, I'm going to go to Russ. He's my supervisor. I trust him. You know what? I don't want to hear that. Russ is a good guy. Russ, he's a great supervisor with us. You see what I'm saying? Somebody says this. Somebody's going to say, well, Russ doesn't do this. Oh, yes, he does. He always does this for us. You'll get to be known like that. Oh, no, Russ wouldn't put up on that on my shift. If there's something wrong, he fixes it. You see what I mean? So if you start hearing things like that about other people, oh, this person wouldn't do this. Kind of, if it's in the middle there, kind of head in that direction, because you want to be respected. You cannot feel weak after a while. You don't want to feel weak. You don't want them to see you that you feel weak. You want to try to step back as a leader, walk out the door, close the door, do what you have to do, breathe, you're up and down, get yourself together and go back out and be calm, right to the point. And they're gonna really respect you, the candidates and employees. And I wish you a lot of luck, Kenny and Russ. Thanks for coming on. You two are a trip, and Doris and Steve. But reach out to and connect with everybody on this team here. They're great people. And again, it's because don't be afraid of making mistakes. As a first-time supervisor, you're gonna make mistakes. But let me tell you, when you make that mistake, you're gonna learn that you're not going to want to do that again. And you're going to grow, and you're going to see a lot of difference of people just flocking to you, a lot of people coming to you. You're going to move up to that next level. People are going to respect you. You're going to see a whole different scenario. Sometimes, I don't know whether it's nice, if I'd rather go into a new place not knowing the field. That's kind of hard when you jump into like a manufacturing. I've done manufacturing. So for me to go back, I'd be fine. But if you're in logistics going to that, it's a whole different ball field than logistics and manufacturing. There's two different types in the Lehigh Valley here for us, like supervisors. When they say supervisor, first line supervisor, front line supervisor, there's all different names for it in those areas. But on that note, everybody, really have a great night. And I have a great guest tomorrow, and you're going to love her. She's from Canada, and we will talk then. Have a good night.